Pronounce your last name for me.
Favre, just like the football player Brett.
Yeah, are you having a better season than he is?
No, not really. He's having a pretty good one.
with whoever his team is this year.
Whoever he plays for.
What's the CJ stand for?
Chester James. I named it after my father.
All right. Give us a little background. How old are you? Where'd you grow up?
I'm 63, and I grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in a little place called Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. And I lived there just about all my life. Spent a little time in Houston, Texas. And when I got back from the service, I stayed down on the Gulf Coast until I got hired by the federal government as an air traffic controller, and I moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and that's where I got started in dogs.
Wow, you covered a lot of territory there. How long were you in the service? What branch?
I was in the Army, and I was an air traffic controller in Vietnam.
Oh, that had to be an exciting, couple of years?
Yeah, I was there for, well, actually I was there the year that Camille hit the Gulf Coast, so I got to come home on emergency leave, and because my father had a heart attack right after Camille. And then I went back and finished out my tour, and whenever I got back, they had an early out program, so I got out of the service when I got back from my hardship.
Then did you have to go through the civilian aircraft controller training?
Yeah, you put in an application. After I got out, it took about a year to get hired, and then they sent us out to Oklahoma City for the Federal Aviation Administration's training school at Wiley Air Force Base.
You know, as an old private pilot myself, I'm fascinated by our traffic control system. What do you think of it these days? Are we safe up there?
It's probably as safe as it can be, but I don't fly that much.
Just because you don't, never.
Yeah, I just don't trust the system that much. Because whenever we went out on strike in 1981, the government did their typical programs as far as not staggering their hiring, and the people that they kept in there weren't really as qualified as the people who left. And now they're getting ready, all those people that they hired are now getting ready to retire. So they're going to have their own little self-made strike.
So what you're saying is we're going to have a major turnover in personnel all at one time, or nearly so?
Nearly so, yes. Yes.
Huh. That is, makes one think for a moment.
Oh yeah, it does me. Having been there, you know, and knew what the system was like whenever we went out on strike in '81, yeah.
Okay, I could talk about that all night because that's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, I could too, because it was a big part of my life.
Well, how long were you a controller then?
I was a controller for 10 years, and I was the president of the local PATCO organization in Montgomery, Alabama for 3 years.
So you were literally in the middle of all that?
Yeah, I was one of the guys that went around the country promoting the strike.
Well be done. Hindsight, always difficult to deal with, but would you do it differently if you could?
No, not at all. No, actually the strike was the best thing that happened to me because I got out here and got involved in dogs, and it's a lot calmer life than being a controller and having to deal with the bureaucrats.
Well, that's interesting. Well, let's start over again. How'd you get involved with dogs in the first place?
Through my wife. Whenever we got married, we bought a German Shepherd, just a pet. She wanted a black German Shepherd, and we found one down in, we were living in Long Beach, Mississippi, and we found a black German Shepherd, and whenever we moved back to Montgomery, she started obedience classes with it, and I went one night and had a friend gave me an Irish Terrier, and I started obedience classes with it, and that's where I got hooked.
Obedience with an Irish Terrier, that's almost a contradiction in terms, isn't it?
Yes, it is. The first time I took it to an obedience trial, I had a friend from Birmingham that was judging, and I went in and did the first half of the routine, and when I went back in for the sits and downs, and he broke his sits and his downs, And at the end, she came up to me. She said, "You know, I started to tell you not to come back for the sits and downs."
Boy, that had a kind of.
Right. Oh yeah, they're a very humbling breed.
Was that your starting terriers in?
Yeah, I actually started in German Shepherds. My wife and I and a friend, we got involved in Shepherds, did a bunch of Shepherd specialties while we were doing the obedience stuff. And then whenever we started going to shows and competing in obedience, we started watching the breeds, and my wife got involved with the Kerry Blues. And I had gotten an Irish Terrier from a lady in Lafayette, Louisiana by the name of Edna Sullivan, who had the Irishman's kennel. And I got an Irish Terrier from her. And that's where I actually started showing dogs.
Well, did she teach you how to groom, or who were your mentors in this sport, if you had any?
The mentor in Kerry Blues was probably George Medeiros from, Medeiros from, let's see, they lived in Picayune, Mississippi. Their kennel name was Betancourt, and that's where we got our first Kerry Blues from. And they taught me a lot as far as grooming Kerrys, and then just going to different people and asking, and just more or less self-taught. On my Irish Terriers, I'd take them to work with me when I'd work the midnight shifts and work on them in the radar room when there was no traffic. I would have gotten fired if the boss would have known it, but...
I see why you are uncomfortable, because now you know what all those other guys are doing, huh?
Right. Yep, that's it.
So, do any breeding?
Yeah, we breed Kerry Blues and Portuguese water dogs. Very active in water dogs and Kerry Blues.
Interesting combination. What's your kennel name?
Lisija, L-I-S-I-J-I. It's a combination of my initials and my wife's name is Lisa.
How'd you get into water dogs?
Through a good friend that had one, and she wanted me to show it for her whenever I was doing my Kerry Blues, and I started from there. And then I got very involved in it whenever I met up with a guy by the name of Colville Jackson, who had Ferncliff Kennels, and he was an old cattleman that got into breeding dogs and had a very good genetic understanding of breeding, and it taught me a lot as far as about breeding.
Really? If you had a client interested in breeding, what kind of advice would you give them?
Had a what now?
If you had a handling client that was wanting to do some breeding, what advice would you give a new breeder?
Well, I do a lot of in water dogs. I work with a lot of breeders, and they ask for my advice on dogs that out here being shown, and pedigree. We study pedigrees and just do a lot of research. And I find that water dogs, the parent club especially, has been very good as far as health issues with their breed, and they've done probably one of the top jobs of promoting health issues in any particular breed in dogs.
Really? What kind of things do they do that other clubs might be able to copy?
Well, they had some of the first genetic markers for PRA. Now they have tests for a form of cancer in their breed. Whenever they do breedings, they require that the siren dams be OFA'd if they're to be if the litter is to be published in their parent club magazine. They have a bunch of stipulations as far as who can advertise a litter in their magazine, and a lot of health issue requirements.
Well, the water dogs, are they tough to groom?
No, well, it depends on the coat and the clip you put them in. The working retriever trim and a curly, there's a lot of trimming. It's a hard trim to do, and with the wavy because of the way the coat lies on the body. And the lion trim, the curlies are a little bit harder to do than the wavies because the wavies coat just lays more natural to the body, and the curlies have to be more or less done up like a Kerry Blue as far as scissoring.
Ooh, what's a clip called where it's all bushy around the chest and then shaved off in the back?
That's called the lion trim. and that's the international trim for that breed. The Americans developed the working retriever trim, and this country and Canada, I believe, are about the only two places that you can show them in the working retriever trim. Anywhere else in the world, they have to be shown in the lion clip.
So the working retriever then is basically trimmed all over and even.
Right. The hair is 1 inch all over.
Well, why is the lion trim so important?
Well, it's to help that they shave a lot of people say from the last rib, and a lot depends on where you shave it as far as the proportions of the dog, and it's mainly the butt is shaved because they cut out on the weight when they're working in the water, and the hair is left on the front part to protect the vital organs like the lungs, the heart, whenever they're in cold water.
So not unlike some of the poodle clips.
Right, but very similar.
You and your wife keep a lot of dogs at home?
Let's see, right now I think we have 7 Kerry Blues. I co-own like 4 or 5 water dogs with different clients that we breed, and we have 1 shepherd, and then we do a little bit of pet boarding. What, you just kept going to shows and you eased into the professional angle of it, or how did that come about? Well, we started going to shows probably back in '76 and doing obedience, and then we got, like I said, we got the Kerry Blue, and I started learning how to trim them and showing German Shepherds. So whenever we would go to the dog shows, I'd have either some of our Shepherds, or I had another lady that was in the obedience club, and she raised Goldens, and I'd take her Goldens whenever I was an air traffic controller and just go to dog shows. And then whenever we went out on strike in '81 and we all got fired, we just decided to do it professionally, and that's when I started doing it professionally.
So now do I have this correct? It took an act of the President of the United States for you to turn professional handler?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Thanks to Mr. Reagan. He's my hero.
Okay. So is the professional aspect of it worked out well for you?
Yeah, it pays the bills. You know, yeah, we've done well with it. You know, and I had some good clients, some good mentors. Do a lot of studying. You know, get involved in kennel clubs and putting on dog shows. I normally do, like in Atlanta, I probably do 4 circuits where I do the grooming area and set up the grooming area and work with the clubs, putting on the shows and stuff.
Okay, if a young person came up to you today and queried you about a handling career, would you recommend it as a career to a young person now?
What I would recommend for them to do is go to school, complete their education, get a college degree, because this will always be here. It's not going anywhere. To get a college degree, and then if they want to do this professionally, go out and work with a good professional and learn the ropes, and then get into it on their own. At least if they have an education and a degree, if something happened to them, like heaven forbid they'd get an accident, get hurt, where they'd be disabled and they couldn't do this, because it's a very physical occupation, they would have something to fall back on. You see some of these kids out here that are doing this and working with professional handlers, and they're, quote, homeschooled, but they never bring books to work, you know, and they think this is it's a lot of glamour and stuff to this, and they look at the 2 minutes we're in the rings, but they don't look at the behind the scenes of the occupation. They don't look at running a business. They don't have any business knowledge, bill collecting, billing, and keeping up on just the whole physical aspects of the dogs, the health issues in dogs, what to do if a dog got sick on you on the road that you could possibly handle yourself, and when to take it to the emergency clinic. There's just a lot of things that go on in this business that the young people just see the 2 minutes in the ring and they think it's a glory.
That's kind of what some clients think, isn't it?
Yeah, I've heard people standing ringside. I've heard people say, "Oh, you see that handler over there? He makes $1 million a year," you know, and they have no idea the overhead to doing this as far as